The air is cold. It is the middle of the night in Jerusalem, specifically the start of spring, likely early April. If you were there, standing just outside the city walls, you would smell the mixture of dust, the faint smoke of dying fires from the Passover meals, and the earthy, pungent scent of crushed olives. We are walking into a crime scene before the crime has technically been committed. We are walking into the Garden of Gethsemane, but before we step under those ancient, twisted trees, I want you to pause, stop, take a breath. Do you realize what Gethsemane actually means? It is not just a poetic name for a garden. In Hebrew, Gethsemane means the oil press. It is a place of crushing, a place where the olive is seized, placed under a massive stone wheel, and ground down until the precious oil flows out. This is not a coincidence. It is a prophecy etched into geography. Tonight, we are not just analyzing a story you have heard in Sunday school since you were a child. We are analyzing the single most terrifying psychological and spiritual event in the history of the universe. We are looking at the silence of God. If you are ready to go deeper into this story than you have ever gone before, if you want to understand the true cost of your salvation, then stay with me. Drop it in the comments right now. Let me know you're here. Let me know you're ready to see this night through different eyes. Come with me across the Kidron Valley. It is dark. The moon is full, casting long, skeletal shadows across the ravine. The temperature has dropped. You can see your breath. The Kidron Brook is flowing with an unnatural darkness. Now listen closely to this detail, because it changes everything about how you see this night. During Passover, thousands of lambs were sacrificed in the temple. Some scholars estimate between 250,000 to 400,000 lambs during this holy week. The blood of those lambs was channeled out of the Temple Mount through ancient drainage systems and flowed into this very brook. So, as Jesus walks with his disciples toward the garden, he is literally stepping over a stream dark with the blood of sacrifices. The irony is so thick you could cut it with a knife. He is crossing over a river of innocent blood, knowing that in less than 24 hours, his own innocent blood will fulfill what all of those lambs could never accomplish. He knows he is the final lamb, the ultimate sacrifice, the end of the old covenant and the beginning of the new. Can you imagine the sound of those footsteps? The crunch of gravel beneath worn sandals? The heavy silence of the 11 men behind him? Their confusion is palpable. They don't understand what is happening. Jesus has been speaking in riddles all night. One of you will betray me. Before the rooster crows, you will deny me 3 times. Where I am going, you cannot follow. They are walking behind a man they love, a man they have seen heal the blind and raise the dead, and they can feel something terrible approaching like a storm on the horizon. Judas is gone. The betrayal has begun. The clock is ticking, and Jesus is walking toward it with his eyes wide open. They arrive at the grove. The olive trees here are old. Some of them may have been hundreds of years old even at that time. Modern olive trees in the Garden of Gethsemane have been carbon dated to over 900 years old, and some botanists believe they are offshoots of trees that stood during Jesus' time. Their trunks are gnarled and knotted, twisted by centuries of seasons, looking like frozen agony, like tortured giants holding vigil. Jesus leaves 8 of the disciples near the entrance. He tells them to sit and wait. Perhaps he knows they cannot handle what is about to happen. He takes Peter, James, and John, his inner circle, the 3 who saw him transfigured on the mountain, glowing with divine glory, and goes deeper into the shadows. There is a deliberate parallelism here. They saw the highest high, now they will witness the lowest low. And here is where the case analysis begins to shift from geography to anatomy. Something happens to Jesus here that has baffled doctors and theologians for centuries. The gospel writers tell us he began to be sorrowful and troubled. But the Greek words used there are far more violent than our English translations suggest. The word for sorrowful is perilupos, which means to be surrounded by grief, to be encircled by sorrow with no escape. The word for troubled is ademoneo, which describes a shock, a physical blow, a terrified surprise, a feeling of being utterly out of place. It is as if he walked around a corner and stared into the mouth of a cannon. It is the word you would use if you suddenly found yourself on the edge of a cliff in the dark, or if you looked down and saw the ground crumbling beneath your feet. He tells them, My soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death. Stop. Read that again in your heart. Let it sink in. To the point of death. The Greek phrase is heios thanatou, unto death, even unto death. This isn't sadness. This isn't anxiety. This isn't even depression as we understand it. This is a physiological reaction so intense that his body is threatening to shut down. He is literally dying of grief. His human nervous system is beginning to collapse under the weight of what he is facing. Medical professionals who have studied this passage suggest that the trauma he is experiencing could have killed him right there in the garden, before the cross, before the nails, before the spear. He goes a stone's throw away, about 40 or 50 feet, close enough for them to see his silhouette but far enough for privacy. He falls to the ground, not kneeling politely with hands folded, he collapses. Mark's gospel says he fell on the ground. Matthew says he fell on his face. Luke says he knelt. The picture we get is of a man whose body is giving out, who keeps trying to stand, to kneel, and keeps falling under the crushing weight. The position of a man who has no strength left. And he prays, Abba, Father, everything is possible for you. Take this cup from me, yet not what I will, but what you will. Let's analyze the cup. This is crucial. This is the heart of the entire matter. In our modern minds, we think the cup is just death. We think Jesus is afraid of the nails, the whip, the suffocation, and yes, as a human being, the torture is terrifying. The Romans had perfected crucifixion into a science of suffering. They designed it to maximize pain and humiliation while prolonging death for days. But Jesus has seen martyrs die. He knows men and women who have died bravely for lesser causes. Isaiah was sawn in two. Jeremiah was stoned. John the Baptist was beheaded. Is the Son of God weaker than a Roman soldier? Is he a coward? No, absolutely not. So, what is in the cup? Why is he screaming in silence? What could make the immortal God tremble? The cup is a specific Old Testament image. It appears again and again in the prophets. In Psalm 75:8 it says, In the hand of the Lord is a cup full of foaming wine, mixed with spices. He pours it out, and all the wicked of the earth drink it down to its very dregs. In Isaiah 51:17, God speaks of the cup of his wrath. In Jeremiah 25:15, God commands the prophet to take this cup filled with the wine of my wrath, and make all the nations to whom I send you drink it. The cup is the symbol of divine judgment. It is the wrath of God against sin, poured out, undiluted, unmixed with mercy. Imagine a cup. Now I want you to pour into that cup every drop of human cruelty that has ever existed. Pour in the rage of every murder committed since Cain killed Abel. Pour in the cold terror of every rape, the abuse of every child, the torture of every innocent, the genocide of nations, the lies that destroyed families, the betrayals that shattered trust, the blasphemies that mocked the sacred. Pour in your sin, the secret things you have done that you hope no one ever sees, the words you wish you could take back, the thoughts you are ashamed of, the addictions, the pride, the selfishness, the apathy. Pour in my sin. Pour in the sin of every human being who has ever lived or will ever live. Now imagine that dark, boiling, toxic liquid represents the wrath of God against all that evil, justice, pure, undiluted justice, holy fury against everything that has torn his creation apart. To drink that cup means to absorb that justice into your own soul. It means to become the target of the Father's holy hatred of evil. It means to experience the full force of divine separation, to feel the weight of cosmic rejection, to be crushed under the judgment that all of humanity deserves. Jesus, who has existed in perfect, unbroken love with the Father for all eternity, who is the beloved Son in whom the Father is well pleased, is looking into the abyss of being separated. He is looking at the moment when the Father will turn his face away. He is staring at spiritual death, at the hell that was meant for us. That is what is in the cup, and he is terrified, rightfully, humanly, utterly terrified. Now, look at his skin. Luke, the physician, The only gospel writer with medical training records a detail that is medically fascinating and spiritually overwhelming. And being in anguish, he prayed more earnestly, and his sweat was like drops of blood falling to the ground. Hematidrosis. It is a rare, documented medical condition. Modern medical literature has recorded fewer than 100 cases in history. It happens when a person is under such extreme levels of stress, fear, anxiety, emotional trauma, that the capillaries, the tiny blood vessels around the sweat glands, rupture and burst. The blood mixes with sweat and exits through the pores. The skin becomes tender, fragile, hypersensitive, painful to the slightest touch. Before the whip even touches his back, Jesus is bleeding. He's bleeding from the inside out. The pressure of the world's sin is literally crushing the blood out of his veins. The oil press. The olive is being crushed, and the oil, the blood, is beginning to flow. Think about the physical implications. When hematidrosis occurs, the skin loses its natural protection. It becomes like raw tissue. Every touch is agony, and in just a few hours, this man will be flogged with a Roman flagrum, a whip embedded with metal and bone designed to tear flesh from the body. His already fragile skin will be shredded. But he knows this. He knows what is coming. And still, he stays. And where are his friends? Let's look at the human element of this case. He goes back to Peter, James, and John. He finds them sleeping. It's easy for us to judge them, isn't it? We think, how could you sleep while God is dying? How could you be so weak, so insensitive, so foolish? But look closer. Put yourself in their sandals. Luke says they were sleeping for sorrow. Have you ever been so depressed, so emotionally exhausted that you couldn't keep your eyes open? Have you ever experienced trauma so overwhelming that your mind just shut down? Grief is heavy. It acts like a sedative. It is a physical weight. They are confused, terrified, and their bodies have shut down as a defense mechanism. They are escaping into sleep because reality is too dark to handle. They cannot process what is happening. Their world is collapsing, and their nervous systems are choosing unconsciousness over the unbearable tension of the moment. Jesus wakes them gently. Could you not watch with me 1 hour? There is no anger in the question, only a profound loneliness. He doesn't need their protection. He could call down 12 legions of angels. He needs their presence. He is fully human. He wants a hand to hold. He wants a voice to say, I'm here. You are not alone. But he gets silence. The silence of the disciples mirrors the silence of the Father. It is a rehearsal for the silence he will experience on the cross. Even now, he is tasting abandonment. He goes away a second time. The prayer intensifies. The agony deepens. He is wrestling not just with fear, but with the weight of a cosmic decision. Luke tells us that an angel appeared to him, strengthening him, not removing the cup, not offering escape, just strength to endure. And after the angel comes, the sweat becomes blood. The strengthening enables him to go deeper into the suffering, not to avoid it. He prays a third time. Same words, same plea, same submission. This is the dark night of the senses and the spirit. The mystics talk about this, the moment when God removes all consolation, all feelings of presence, leaving the soul in a void, naked and exposed. It is the stripping away of every comfort to reveal the purity of the will. Jesus is entering the ultimate void. He is stepping into the God-forsakenness that we deserved. He prays the same thing again, but notice the shift. The first prayer was a request. Take this cup. The second prayer is a submission. If this cup cannot pass unless I drink it, may your will be done. By the third prayer, the battle is won. The human will has been wrestled into alignment with the divine will. The yes is complete. This is the turning point of human history. Right there, in the dirt, in the dark, among the olive trees. The battle wasn't won on the cross. The battle was won in Gethsemane. The cross was the execution of the victory won in the garden. Golgotha was the public display of what was settled in private. If Jesus had said no, if he had stood up and walked away, and he could have, we would be lost forever. Hell would have been our only destiny. But he stayed. He wrestled his human will into submission to the divine will. It wasn't automatic. It wasn't easy. It was a war fought with sweat and blood and tears, a war fought in the secret place where only the Father could see. Now imagine the atmosphere changing. The silence is broken, not by a voice from heaven, but by the sound of marching, footsteps, many footsteps, torches flickering through the trees, casting wild shadows that dance across the gnarled trunks, metal clashing against leather, the sound of swords being drawn, the temple guard, and leading them, Judas. Let's analyze Judas for a moment. This is a psychological tragedy of the highest order. A man who walked with Jesus for 3 years, who heard every sermon, who saw every miracle, who ate at the same table, and yet something twisted in his soul. Some scholars say it was greed. He was the treasurer and had been stealing from the money bag. Some say it was political disappointment. He expected a military messiah and got a suffering servant instead. Some say it was spiritual darkness. John says Satan entered into him. Perhaps it was all of these. Perhaps it was none of them. What we know is this: Judas didn't just point from a distance. He didn't just tell the guards where to find Jesus. He used a sign of intimacy, a kiss. In that culture, a kiss was a bond of brotherhood, of respect, of love between teacher and student. To use it as a weapon is a perversion of the highest order. It is love turned into a dagger. It is intimacy weaponized. Jesus looks at him. Can you imagine that eye contact? Friend, do what you came for. Friend. He calls him friend. Even as the knife goes in, the heart of Jesus remains open. That is a love that is almost terrifying in its intensity. It is the love that continues to pursue even in betrayal. Judas will leave this garden and hang himself before the sun rises again. The guilt will be unbearable. But in this moment, Jesus still calls him friend. The chaos erupts. Peter, groggy, terrified, adrenaline dumping into his system, draws a sword. He's a fisherman, not a soldier. He swings wildly. He aims for the head of Malchus, the high priest's servant. If Malchus hadn't ducked, Peter would have split his skull. Instead, the blade cuts off his right ear. Look at this scene. It's messy. It's violent. It's human panic. Blood is flowing. Men are shouting. The guards are moving in with ropes and chains. And in the middle of this swirling storm of aggression, Jesus is the eye of the hurricane. He speaks. "Put your sword away. Shall I not drink the cup the Father has given me?" Then he does something that should make us all stop and stare. He touches the ear. He heals the man who is there to arrest him. Think about that. The last miracle Jesus performs before his death is an act of mercy toward an enemy. He heals the wound caused by his own disciples' misguided zeal. There is a lesson there for us, deep in the subtext. How often do we, in our attempt to defend God, cut people? How often do we swing swords of judgment, criticism, self-righteousness, and violence in the name of protecting the faith? And how often does Jesus have to heal the wounds we cause in his name? The kingdom doesn't advance by the sword. It advances by the cross. Jesus turns to the crowd. He addresses them with calm authority. Am I leading a rebellion that you have come out with swords and clubs? Every day I was with you in the temple courts, and you did not lay a hand on me. But this is your hour, when darkness reigns. This is your hour, not my hour, not the Father's hour, your hour, the hour of human evil, the hour of spiritual blindness. But even in their hour, they are fulfilling his plan. Then, the capture. They bind his hands, rough ropes, probably used for animals, tied tightly around his wrists. Those hands that held children and blessed them. Those hands that broke bread and multiplied fish. Those hands that touched lepers and made them clean. Those hands that would soon have nails driven through them. Now they are tied with rough rope, the fibers cutting into skin already tender from the blood sweat. And the disciples? The text says, "Then all the disciples deserted him and fled." All of them. Not just the weak ones, not just Thomas or Matthew. Peter fled, John fled, James fled. The inner circle scattered like sheep when the wolf comes. Mark's gospel includes a strange detail. A young man was following Jesus, wearing nothing but a linen garment. When they tried to seize him, he fled naked, leaving the garment behind. Many scholars believe this young man was Mark himself, inserting his own shame into the narrative. a cameo of cowardice. Everyone ran. Everyone. Jesus is utterly alone. No disciples, no angels, no visible Father. Just him and the mob. The case file of Gethsemane ends with a solitary figure being marched into the darkness, surrounded by enemies, with the taste of blood in his mouth, and the weight of the world on his shoulders. The torches disappear over the hill toward the city. The garden falls silent again. The olive trees stand witness. The blood-stained ground waits for the rain. But why? Why this specific garden? Why this specific type of psychological torture? Why the silence? Why the crushing? Here is the deep theological truth, the mystery hidden from ages but now revealed. Jesus had to experience the silence of God so that you never have to. He was abandoned so that you could be adopted. He drank the cup of wrath dry, down to the last bitter drop, down to the dregs, so that when you lift the cup at the communion table, it is a cup of blessing, not a cup of judgment. It is wine, not wrath. The crushing you feel in your life, the anxiety that wakes you up at 3 a.m. and wraps around your chest like iron bands, the feeling that your prayers are hitting a brass ceiling and bouncing back unanswered, the dark nights of the soul when God feels a million miles away. He has been there. He has mapped that territory. He has consecrated the darkness. He has transformed the silence from a place of abandonment into a place of intimacy. When you are in your own Gethsemane, and you will be, if you haven't been already, when you are being crushed by the oil press of life, when the weight of your circumstances is pressing down and you feel like you might shatter, remember this night. Remember that the silence you hear is not the absence of God. It is the posture of a God who is working something so deep, so profound, so transformative, that words cannot contain it. The crushing is not meant to destroy you. It is meant to extract from you something precious, the oil, the wine, the life that can only come through death. The olive must be crushed for the oil to flow. The grape must be crushed for the wine to be made. The seed must die in the dark earth to produce life. The wheat must be ground to become bread. This is the law of the kingdom, and the king himself submitted to it. He went first. He entered the darkness ahead of you, so that when you enter it, you are not entering something unknown. You are following a path he has already walked. You are tracing footsteps already made. Listen to the wind in the olive trees again. It sounds like a whisper. It sounds like a prayer. Watch the torches fade into the distance toward the house of Caiaphas, where the religious leaders are waiting with their false witnesses and predetermined verdict. The garden is quiet again. The blood on the rocks is drying, turning brown in the night air. But the victory has been secured. The yes has been spoken. The battle has been won. Everything that happens from this point forward, the trials, the beatings, the mockery, the nails, the cross, the darkness, the cry of dereliction, the death, all of it is the outworking of the decision made in Gethsemane. The war was won in the garden. Calvary was the coronation. I want you to feel the weight of this. This wasn't a play. This wasn't a metaphor. This wasn't a symbol or a myth or a nice story with moral lessons. This was a real man, with real nerves and real pain receptors, who was also the real God, sweating real blood for real sins. Yours, mine, every lie we've told, every heart we've broken, every time we've chosen ourselves over others, every moment of pride, lust, anger, greed, all of it. He took it, he bore it, he became it, and he was crushed under the weight so that we could be free. There is a silence in this story that demands a response, not a theological debate, not a casual nod, not a "that's interesting" and move on with your life. It demands a response from the deepest part of your soul, from the part of you that knows you are broken and in need of saving, from the part of you that has tasted the crushing and wondered if God was there. I want you to close your eyes for a second. Imagine him looking at you across the centuries, across the dimensions, with that sweat on his brow, with that blood on his skin, waiting for the arrest that he knows is coming. And he is thinking of you, your name, your face, your sins, your pain. He did it for you, not for humanity in general, for you specifically. If you were the only person who ever lived, he would have gone through Gethsemane for you alone. If you can feel the gravity of this sacrifice, if you understand even a fraction of the cost of that cup, I want you to make a digital altar right now. Don't just scroll past. Stop. This is holy ground. If you believe that his silence purchased your voice, and his crushing purchased your healing, and his darkness purchased your light, I want you to type a single word of faith in the comments. Type, I believe, or simply, thank you. Let it be your small confession in a noisy world. Let it be your stone of remembrance. And if you are currently in a Gethsemane, if you are feeling the crushing right now, if you are in the dark night and cannot see the way forward, write strength so we can stand with you in the silence. You are not alone. The cup is empty. He drank it all, every drop. There is nothing left for you to drink but blessing. Peace be with you.